Welcome back, all my goblins, gremlins, and ghouls. Today I will be discussing Arcane Season 2, Episode 5. How exciting, I know. Just to let you all know, there's obviously going to be spoilers for Season 2 and Episode 6 of Season 2, even though I'm not discussing that today. Point being, if you don't want to hear, proper spoilers, and instead, watch a spoiler-free review, go do that, because I don't have one. I'm not going to be sitting around being like, oh, the audio and visuals are nice, so you should totally watch this. No, I want to be like, damn, she hit that person, and that person died. Get ready, because we're getting into the meat and potatoes of it all. We're tucking into that full roast dinner, which is Arcane Episode 5 of Season 2. You can definitely tell this is unscripted. So, let's get right into the news. So the episode itself starts off with this really nice montage, just like the other episode, like episode 4. But this time, instead of it being from, the Zorn perspective, it is now from this sort of, pit fight. Not perspective, but, it's showing the insides of a pit fight. That's what's going on here. And this is where we're reintroduced to Vi. And not only are we reintroduced to Vi, but we see my boy Loris. And it's quite nice just to get that small bit of closure, because I don't think we'll see him again, of just he's left the Enforcers and now he's pit fighting in Zorn with Vi, and just almost being her manager. And that was good to see. It was just nice to get that bit of conclusion and just to see what Vi was up to in the few months which have gone on since the last episode, or not the last episode, but the first act. Besides that, we see her whole kind of transformation, looking very emo now. I like it, it's pretty cool. It reminds me of WWF. It's, their Attitude Era. Yes, I did get that from the Vince McMahon documentary, but besides, you get what I'm going for, pretty black and bleak and colourless, but it looks cool. I like it. I don't know whether or not I like it for the rest of the season, to be fair. I do like quite a lot of the new design changes, but this one I'm not keen on. For the pit fightery thing, I liked it, but for the rest of going on into episode 5 and episode 6, for what seems to be the remainder of the show, I don't know if I like it. I'm not sure in the sneak peek or the kind of next time teasers of episode 6 we see her change back to usual, but I feel like it might stay as a stylistic choice. After that, we see Jinx get sort of reacquainted. I say reacquainted in a very loose term, because it's more like Vi's attempted murder of her sister. And do we expect anything less? So, last time Vi and Jinx saw each other, it was on the other side of a fist, like a mechanical fist, one of these Hex Tech gauntlets. We saw Vi, about to finish off Jinx. And, Vi was prepared to kill her. And I don't know whether Vi now blames Jinx for the breakup with Caitlyn, because at the end of the day, it was kind of instigated by Jinx. Because if you think about it, if they weren't going to hunt down Jinx, which they obviously were going to have to do, but if they weren't in an ideal world, I feel like Vi and Caitlyn would have been together still. I totally ship Caitlyn and Maddie, by the way. I think it's a cute couple. And it's probably... I actually, no. I was going to say it's probably more healthy than Vi and Caitlyn, but I definitely feel like there's a power imbalance when it comes to Caitlyn and Maddie, because Caitlyn, at the end of the day, is Caitlyn's subordinate. So, Maddie and Caitlyn are working together, while Vi and Caitlyn weren't, so it's probably a bit healthier in that aspect. But, no, I can see them working together as a better team. Besides that, no, Vi almost kills Jinx, right? And Vi is completely broken, much like everybody else in Act 2. Everybody is kind of on their own. They are not in a good mental state. And who can blame them? There's been attack after attack after attack, a failed task force, and, it's all kind of kicking off. And with this conversation, it brings up another question of how did Jinx escape Stillwater, Blackwater prison, or whatever it's called, the prison, right? Because at the end of last episode, she was face to face with Warwick or Vander or whatever you want to call him, and it wasn't looking good. Like, I know Powder or Jinx is the kind of control state of Vander, like that's what kind of kicks him back into reality, but at the same time, you're with a 10-foot tall beast, man beast, super beast, Rob Zombie beast. How are you going to escape from Stillwater? Not only, I know Singer didn't escape. Singer was still in the cell, but how is Jinx going to escape, with Vander here? It doesn't really make sense. And then no one really spots him or follows him besides Jinx. And I know we've seen his incredible levels of agility and athleticism, but at the same time, that's like not being able to track a 10-ton lorry through the streets of London. I know there's a lot of cars and everything else going on, but you should be able to keep a track of that lorry. It's a lorry at the end of the day, you can't miss it, It's not like an ant or a bee or a wasp or anything along those lines where you could see yourself missing it, right? No, it is right there. How, right? And in the mine shafts, when she then later says, "Oh, I lost it in the mine shafts," I can see you losing it in a connected labyrinth of tunnels, right? I can see you not being able to keep track of a beast in the dark in these winding corridors and tunnels. That makes sense to me. But a city where there's loads of other people, sure, I don't really get that. And what my other question was when did he revert back to this bestial state? What, does he look away from Jinx and he then reverts back to this kind of evil, bloodthirsty, kind of aggressive state? And I know I'm kind of going into semantics here, and this might be explained later in episode 7, episode 8, episode 9, but that's just what I want to know, because there's not enough, I know I probably get too in depth with what I'm thinking about when I'm watching a TV show, but at the same time, it just doesn't make complete sense. That's a tiny plot hole. It's an inconsistency which I'm willing to look past. And I know a lot of you will not agree with me on that, just because I'm not really talking about the things that matter, but it's just at the same time, Vander suddenly leaves, Jinx suddenly leaves, Jinx loses Vander, and then Jinx goes to Vi, and she goes, "Oh, guess what? Dad's back. And of course, Vi's going to be skeptical when Jinx tells her this, because Jinx is a sociopathic liar. She's just compulsive liar, and she'll do anything to get her own way. But you can tell that Jinx has really begun to soften up with the whole kind of, I'm taking care of Aisha now. She's my sort of almost surrogate sister. It's what you would have done to me, Vi, when we were younger, sort of thing. And I think, although Vi doesn't realise it then, she realises it later on. And that's quite interesting to see. So, after Vi nearly kills Jinx, they decide to go on this kind of wild goose chase for Vander. Once again, I'm being hyperbolic when I say wild goose chase, because it's not like they're doing it for absolutely no reason. They're going to find their dad, of course. After the sort of title sequence where we get the intro and whatnot, we then see Ambessa and Caitlin in Stillwater prison. And this is quite interesting, and I know I say that phrase a lot, but Caitlin was quite insecure in her own abilities when we first saw her in the last episode, and that's why she's been comforted by Maddie. Now we see what she's like when she's kind of in command and in public, because most of our scenes were shown in private in the last episode. She's out there with amongst like her men, with another authority figure, and she's putting on this powerful leader sort of like visage. And I think this looks really good. She kind of discusses what's been going on, what happened. She's seen what Vander or Warwick is capable of doing, and now she needs to figure out how to contain this beast. The interrogation with Sigurd then happens, so Ambessa and Sigurd's in the room, and then Caitlin sort of joins them. And once again, I really like this scene because it shows how Caitlin has been ruling Piltover, mostly due to like how the lines of, there are cells much worse than this and I can put you in one, but I deemed them inhumane. I thought that the prisoners actually ended up deserving better. And that really goes to show that she's trying to be the strong leader, but still trying to be compassionate and good to her subjects almost. And it kind of contrasts with this kind of authoritarian figure that she is. And like, she's a dictator now for all intents and purposes. She dissolved the council, and the only person with as much power as her is Ambessa. So it was quite interesting to see how she's dealing with Sigurd, and when she leaves the room, that Ambessa is like, nah, I'm going to stick you in one of them, or if I'm not going to stick you in one of these cells, I will make sure you wanted to be stuck in one of these cells instead. I'll make that look like your honeymoon. I will make that look like paradise to you. We then get to see the flashback of when Mel gets kidnapped by this kind of Black Rose society, like all the mages and mysticals and, you know, all those goofy goobers with the magic. And also, this is where I realised that Laura was confirmed to be dead, or well, at least by Mel's perspective, she's dead. Because the thing is that when we saw like the rose grow out of her back in episode 3, we didn't really know, and I didn't actually understand that she was kind of in that web of chains that Mel was trying to reach for. But Mel is now transported into this sort of pit where they throw false prophets. Try saying that 3 times over. I did, it wasn't fun. And this is where she's then speaking to this mysterious figure. And that's when I noticed, like, it probably will be her brother. Because where else are they going to hold all of these Medardas? I believe it's at the end of the next episode, or like midway through, we then get the revelation that it isn't actually her brother, and it's just like a Jedi mind trick. Once again, I mean, I can understand why this kind of figment's there, and it's probably there to kind of drive her insane and torture her a bit more. But yeah, at first I was like, if they're going to bring back another character who then escapes and returns to Piltover, I wouldn't have been that interested. But no, I really like how it is actually just like a figment of her imagination, this brother, because it's trying to help her, but at the same time it's probably trying to hinder her, because it is an illusion made by all these mages and magicians. We then cut back to Jinx and Vi, and Aisha's there with them, and this is where I'd just like to bring up the pacing issues once again. I feel like this is a very sort of controversial take, mostly just because I don't see a lot of people agreeing with me. I might be wrong though, because I haven't actually looked at most other sort of like outlets where people can talk about Arcane, so like the only time where I'm really engaging myself with the community is on the comments to my own videos. But this is where I kind of see a pacing issue of, like, Jinx and Aisha are kind of there, like nothing's happened, and I would have felt like Jinx would have told Aisha to once again stay behind, because they're going to find this 50-foot man-beast, and I know Jinx has a perspective of, it's our dad, he's in there, he wouldn't hurt us, but at the same time, he doesn't know who Aisha is. Like, sure, it's a child with blue hair, he might confuse her with Powder, but we this is a very dangerous situation. I think Vi even acknowledges, why are you bringing a child with us? And I would have just liked to seen a reunition, a reunion, not a reunite. That's not a word. A reunion of Jinx, Savika, and Aisha outside of, like, not outside of Blackwater, but in their, like, hideout. Not just randomly putting Aisha back in here just because Jinx has brought him along. I know that, like, Jinx would have probably thought, oh, he's safe coming with us, but I kind of disagree with that decision, but I can understand why he's there. Once again, the pacing issue of, we see Jinx suddenly from Stillwater to Vi, and now she's come with Vi, or, like, decided to meet Vi with Aisha, and they're all kind of together here. And I would have liked to seen, like, Savika's sort of opinion and, like, what she would have had to say just after the aftermath of Blackwater or Stillwater. And yeah, going back into the pacing issues is, do we add more time to the episodes, or do we make more episodes? Because each act is 3 episodes, each season's 3 acts, that's 9 episodes. Do we add more time? Because they're only about 40 minutes, 50 minutes long. And that kind of brings in a Stranger Things sort of dilemma, because if you remember the season 4 of Stranger Things, it's very much, we're going for the same sort of episode length, like episode kind of structure where we have 8 or 9 episodes, but now we're making each episode an hour and a half, an hour and 50 minutes. They're quite bloated, if anything. And it's kind of Stranger Things has the opposite problem, where it's going for the same episode length, but more time in those episodes, and it ends up feeling quite long, and you should cut down all these different pieces and quite fan servicey, while the Arcane episodes feel quite tight and claustrophobic, and they don't have time to breathe and sort of spread out a bit and let the what's going on sink in. But the frame of, like, Vi coming down the stairs reminds me a lot of M.C. Escher, the kind of the guy who does the surrealist stairs. He's a pretty cool artist, in my opinion. We then see Jinx, Vi, and Aisha go into the mines. I do like the design of the mines. I find it's quite interesting to have the concept of, when you clap your hands, all these bizarre sort of moonlight rocks sort of light up. If you remember the show Adventure Time, they have a mini-series in that called Stakes, and it's all about, like, hunting vampires, right? And one of the vampires, called the Moon, like, lays these eggs almost. Like, there's a trail of eggs she leaves. Whenever, like, she moves around, they remind me of that. But maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm just going insane on that front. But, like, it does remind me of Stakes from the Adventure Time miniseries. The eggs, it does. Moving on, we see Vi and Jinx get into this argument about sort of, like, being not mentally well. Like, they've both kind of endured this trauma, and they're all kind of accusing each other of being psycho and, like, making up fairy tales, and that's why you're dragging me down into the mines. But it kind of stops being about, like, are you delusional, and more being, this is about pride. I'm the better sister. I'm the better fighter at the end. And we see the result of this when kind of, like, Jinx gets the first hit and slaps Vi around the face, and then Vi just starts pulling on her pigtails and going to town on her. We then see Aisha jump in, which surprised me a bit. I kind of expected it, but it just shows, once again, the commitment to Jinx Aisha has. And Vi has none of this and backhands the poor child. She just is like, get off me, once Aisha starts biting down on her. And it draws blood. And this is once again where you can show the affection that Jinx and Aisha have. And I do sound like a broken sort of record going on about these two over the last episode as well. But I feel like the writers of this episode just really hammer it home too. We then see Ambessa turn to Singed and offer him this deal of, come with me, work for me, you can get your monster back because we want the monster too. And he sort of like delves into Vanda's history as the monster. He talks about how powder was the original sort of like control factor, or he didn't realise there was control factor besides blood. And now he's figured out how there is actually something. This scene I kind of covered earlier. I don't really have much to say. I can understand why Singed would work with the sort of enforcers or Ambessa even, but I'm just kind of curious on what happens to him and where this sort of storylines go, because at the end of the day, I don't really have much of an opinion on it. We then cut to Mel, who's still in the pit, and she's kind of discussing with her brother, and this is where we find the revelation of one of them was like an illegitimate child. One of them was born to something else, or has something to do with this Black Rose Society, and that's why Mel has now been captured, and why the Black Rose Society want her and her brother. I'm interested to see where this will go. I'm not sure, actually, if Mel will get out of here, but it looks like she's well on her way, to be fair. But she does realise that her brother isn't real in the next episode, and I'm like, that's probably like the next trial she'll have to go through. We then get this confrontation with Singed and Caitlin realises that Singed is this revered alchemist from like the Piltover sort of scientist community from years ago, who was like exiled with absolutely no word. And she's like, you're a monster, who are you? And then she calls him Dr. Reverick. I don't believe I'm pronouncing that right, but we then get to see his motivations, which are really interesting, and they do remind me of Dr. Freeze from Batman, who's trying to bring back his wife, bring back his wife, like, from the dead. I almost thought of the Justice League, the new Justice League game, or, well, it's a bit old now, the one that nobody likes, where it's Mrs. Freeze trying to bring back her husband, but no, it's Singed or Dr. Reverick trying to bring back his daughter, who's in, like, this comatose state in this gooey-looking jar, which doesn't look pleasant to be in. It's like Nickelodeon Slimed, but, like, if you're to be in that, like, 24/7. We then cut back to Mel, and this is where I just want to mention, although I didn't have this on my notes, and I'm just going through the episode as I speak about this, so I've got on pause right now. Mel is actually, this is the episode 5 is where she finds out her brother isn't actually her real brother, and I thought that was the next episode, so when I cover that tomorrow, I'll have to go over that and remind myself what happens, because I don't know why I didn't put that in the notes. I just put, Mel is trapped in Fancy Peacock Pit, and I just thought that was like the gist of what happened in her story. But no, she finds out, and you can tell, like, this is some true mental torture. Imagine your brother just not being real, and, like, him sort of turning out to be some sort of illusion or sort of construct by people who want to do you harm. But this is where she finds out that she is this kind of chosen child, the illegitimate child of Ambessa Madada, and that's why she's here. We see all the imagery and all the chains and the rows again, and we also see like the person she's pushing into the wall, like the sacrifice that she had to make to like almost get out of this pit or go on to the next stage of these trials or whatever they are, whatever the Rose wants them to do, is like not kill her brother, but kill this construct. And so she smashes her head in, and it kind of shows a few different reflections, and then it cuts to the scene of her being entangled, ensnared in these chains. When she ends up getting like consumed by these chains, we then see the tattoos sort of light up and kind of explode around her to sort of protect her from this evil magic. And that's also what protected her from the blast in the first episode. When Jinx blew up the council sort of meeting room, that's what protected her and Jace. And I remember, I believe it was Schnee, or whatever his name is, on YouTube talk about this back when the first season first came out, 3 or 4 years ago. And no, he was bang on the money with that one. So hats off to him for getting that one correct. And it just shows this kind of power that Mel has, tattooed or imprinted on her body. We then return to Vi and Jinx and Aisha, and they've discovered this, mining area, the pit stop, where Vanda and Silco and Vi's mother and father used to work. And we see this really nice note written by Vanda to Silco. It's kind of this bittersweet, tragic letter, which really sheds some light on their relationship. And we'll get another scene like that, I believe, in the next episode. It might be at the end of this episode. But it's just nice to see, and it really makes you feel bad for what happened in the first act of the first season. And it's none of this would have happened in some reality. And I almost want to see that more. But that really engages me with the show, and I really like that moment. I really like the moment with her Vi's parent, mother, and Vi and Silco later on. The next bit, when Vi and Jinx and Aisha are going through the mines, was once again specifically where I remembered that the episode just needed a touch more breathing room, because they're then assaulted by Vanda, and Vi's fending Vanda off, or Warwick off. Franken Vanda is my preferred name for him, because he is literally Frankenstein's monster. And we see him attack Vi, but Powder's no, Jinx is no, we need to stop attacking him. He's fine. And we then see, he recognises Vi, and that sends him straight back, and we see this really nice and wholesome memory. And this is why I wanted it to, have a bit more runtime to it, mostly just because I felt before and after this moment with Vi and Powder's mum, and Silco and Vanda, just needed, a little bit more space, because it enclosed between that moment and this group hug, which was a really nice bit, and I really enjoyed that, and the bit where Salo returns to the Hextech core. And it goes from this action scene to a nice wholesome moment, to a nice wholesome moment in the present, which isn't a flashback, to another oh shit moment, this is another revelation, what has happened to Jace? But it was kind of nice to see a moment before the revolution where everything was calm and collected, and things were looking peaceful and hopeful for the future of Zorn as a whole. And it just really goes to show, the heights from which we've fallen, to the degeneracy in which we've gotten to. I'm sure we'll get a couple more flashbacks in the future, just to, give us the entire picture, because I don't really see them ending the show without that sort of, the people on YouTube who make the complete timelines, where they go from start to finish, and they kind of push it all out, and, I don't think they'll leave room for speculation, but I might be wrong here. That's just my opinion. We then see Jinx, Aisha, Vanda / Warwick, and Vi all have this group hug, and that was a really sweet moment. But once again, I did feel it just needed 10 more, 15 more seconds to just let that breathe and let it all sink in, because I felt I was getting a lot of whiplash between these 3 episodes of big moment, big moment, big moment, big moment, big moment. I just need a point where I can go, oh, and breathe, and just let things air out a bit. The episode then ends with, the mutated Hex Core, and Salo going to retrieve something from the Hex Core. I believe it's power source, or something that's enhancing its ability to sort of abduct the Heimerdinger and Echo and Jace. I'm not sure on what that thing is, and I'm sure we'll get a further explanation later. But for now, all we get is Salo retrieving something, Jace appearing once Salo's sort of taken something away from the Hex Core. Maybe its limits are now being confined a bit more, and that's why Jace has returned from inside of it. it looks like it's been months. I feel like it's not been years. It's been real time has reflected in the hex core, but it's probably something Lovecraftian beyond our belief, which has broken Jace's sanity, and we can see that especially in the next episode and a bit here. We see the extent of Victor's powers and him talking through Salo and being like, "Don't worry, gang, I've got it all under control." When I feel like once again the hex tech is more malign than we think. It is something grossly overpowered and otherworldly. And it doesn't align with whatever's going on in Piltover and Zorn. And that's where Jace comes in and steps in and he's like, "I've got to destroy this." And I also think he's been being manipulated by whatever the hex core is, or some sort of element from the hex core. And Victor invites Jace to meet with him, and Jace accepts that, but it's obviously going to be an assassination attempt. I'll delve more into that within the next kind of analysis and breakdown, but we get the death of Salo, and I didn't touch upon this a moment ago, but yeah, Salo went to Victor and got healed, and he's a new man. But once again, we don't know how much of that's Victor and this kind of hive mind and how much of that's Salo. But Salo goes to leave, like, non-aggressively, and Jace has none of it and kills Salo. And I won't lie, I was a touch disappointed by Salo's death because I felt like he might have a bigger part to play. And that prediction of mine just was completely wrong. But he won't be missed too much. And I'm interested to see where the story goes from this point, from episode 6 onwards. Once again, that's all I've really had to say. Besides pacing, I keep banging on about pacing. Once again, like a broken record, I have the same 3 or 4 sayings that I cannot get rid of. I'm curious to see where this goes in the future. Really looking forward to next week's episodes. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, etc. And I'll see you then.